Sometimes a story twist works because it feels inevitable, almost like the characters walk themselves straight into the trap without realizing it. And the situation with Cullum, Britt, Jason, and Rocco feels exactly like that kind of trap. Not flashy, not loud at first, just quiet manipulation building piece by piece until suddenly nobody can move anymore. At the beginning of this whole situation, Cullum does not actually know the details of Britt's plan. What he knows is much simpler and maybe more dangerous because of that. He senses distance. Britt is distracted. She is polite with him but colder than before. Anyone paying attention could notice something like that. But Cullum is the kind of man who notices everything. Too much maybe. And honestly, if I look at it from Cullum's perspective, his reaction makes sense in a twisted way. A man like him survives because he never trusts anyone completely, especially not someone who has already been emotionally connected to people like Jason. So when Britt starts acting differently, Cullum doesn't confront her directly. No dramatic scene, no shouting. He does something quieter. He assigns people to watch her. Not in an obvious way. Cullum is smarter than that. One man watches the hospital where Britt spends time. Another follows from a distance when she leaves town or meets someone privately. They don't approach her. They don't interfere. They just observe. Days pass like that, and the reports are boring at first. Britt works. Britt talks to people. Britt goes home. But Cullum keeps the surveillance going anyway. Something in his instincts keeps telling him the story is not finished yet. Then eventually, something happens that changes everything. One evening, Britt meets Rocco somewhere quiet, maybe a park bench, maybe outside a school parking lot when the place is mostly empty. The exact location doesn't matter much. What matters is that Britt chose the place because she believed it was private, but it isn't. One of Cullum's men followed her there without being seen. He stays far away, behind a line of trees or maybe near a parked car. He cannot hear every word clearly, but he hears enough. And the tone of the conversation is wrong. It feels heavy, emotional. Britt is trying to stay calm while speaking with Rocco, but anyone listening can tell she is saying goodbye. Not the casual goodbye people say every day. Something deeper, something final. She tells Rocco that she might leave town soon. She doesn't explain everything. She avoids specifics. But she hints that she will be gone for a long time. Maybe permanently. Rocco looks confused. Of course he does. To him this comes out of nowhere. He asks where she is going. Britt hesitates before answering. That hesitation is important. Because eventually she mentions Jason. Not in detail. Just enough that the name slips into the conversation. And that is the moment the spy realizes he has something important. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't step closer. He simply memorizes the pieces of information and leaves quietly once the conversation ends. Later that night, he reports everything to Cullum. Now here is where the story gets interesting. Cullum does not explode with anger when he hears the news. That would be too simple. Instead, he listens very carefully while the man repeats what he heard. Every little detail, the goodbye tone, the mention of Jason, the suggestion of leaving town. Cullum sits there in silence for a long time after the report ends. Then he smiles slightly. Not a happy smile. Something colder, because suddenly everything makes sense to him. Britt is planning to run away, and she is not doing it alone. She is planning to leave with Jason. From Cullum's point of view, that is not just betrayal. It is also a loss of control. And control is something he values more than almost anything else. But the most interesting detail from the report is not Jason's name. It is Rocco. The spy described how emotional Britt became while speaking to the boy, how she struggled to keep her voice steady, how she looked like someone saying farewell to family. That detail gives Cullum an idea. A cruel idea? Yes. But also a very effective one. Cullum starts asking questions about Rocco, where he goes during the day, who usually watches him, when he is most vulnerable. His men are confused at first, but they follow orders. Soon Cullum understands something important. Britt might not biologically be Rocco's mother anymore according to the complicated history surrounding them, but emotionally the connection still exists. Britt still cares deeply about that boy, maybe more than she should. And that emotional attachment becomes the weak point. If Cullum tries to stop Britt directly, she might resist him. She might fight back. Maybe even run sooner than planned. But if something happens to Rocco, everything changes. So Cullum creates a new plan very quickly. A desperate one maybe, but he trusts his instincts. He orders 2 of his men to take Rocco. Quietly, no witnesses if possible, no obvious violence. The boy disappears for a few hours and suddenly nobody knows where he went. The kidnapping itself happens fast. Children are easier to isolate than people think. One moment Rocco is walking somewhere familiar. The next moment a car door opens, hands grab him, and he is gone. Within minutes he is transported to a hidden location prepared earlier by Cullum's people. Not a dungeon. Cullum is not stupid enough to treat the boy brutally. Rocco is a bargaining chip. That means he needs to stay alive and unharmed. Once the kidnapping is complete, Cullum waits. He doesn't immediately call Britt. Instead, he lets her panic first. He knows that eventually someone will notice Rocco missing. The confusion will spread. Questions will start appearing. Only then does Cullum make the phone call. Britt answers, thinking it might be news about Rocco. And technically it is. Cullum's voice on the line is calm, almost friendly, which somehow makes the situation worse. He explains the reality in simple words. Rocco is safe for now, but he is in Cullum's custody, and that safety depends entirely on Britt's behavior. The moment Britt hears this, her entire world collapses. She demands proof. Cullum provides it easily. A short recording of Rocco speaking from the hidden location. The boy sounds scared but not injured. Then the conditions arrive. Britt must stay in town. She must not leave with Jason. She must behave normally as if nothing has happened. Most importantly, she must not tell Jason the truth. If she does, Rocco will suffer the consequences. Cullum does not need to explain those consequences in detail. Britt understands perfectly. After the call ends, Britt sits in silence for a long time. She had already prepared herself mentally for leaving town with Jason. She thought the hardest part would be saying goodbye to people. But now leaving is impossible. Still, Jason does not know any of this. Jason continues preparing their escape plan, transportation, safe routes, timing, everything arranged carefully. When he finally meets Britt to finalize things, he expects excitement mixed with nervousness. Instead, he finds hesitation. Britt tells him she cannot go. The words come out awkwardly. Not convincing. Even she knows that. Jason immediately senses something is wrong. His instincts are sharp. He asks questions. Why the sudden change? What happened? Britt refuses to explain. She says she has personal matters to resolve. She says Jason should leave without her. She insists that it is better this way. Honestly, the scene would probably be painful to watch. Two people who clearly care about each other but are suddenly separated by secrets. Jason does not fully believe her explanation, but eventually he accepts the situation because Britt seems determined. And that is exactly what Cullum wanted. The separation is the key step. Once Jason is no longer physically connected to Britt's plan, Cullum can move to the next stage. Because Cullum never intended to let Jason simply leave. Jason represents danger. As long as he is alive, he could return someday. He could investigate. He could threaten Cullum's power. So Cullum issues another order. This one is darker. A group of hired men will intercept Jason on his route out of town. The attack will look random. Maybe a robbery. Maybe a road incident that escalates into violence. Either way, the objective is clear. Jason must die before reaching Canada. While this assassination attempt is being prepared, Britt remains trapped in emotional torture. She continues living her daily routine while secretly knowing that Rocco is imprisoned somewhere because of her situation. Cullum contacts her occasionally to reinforce control. Short calls, reminders that the boy is still under his supervision. He never reveals the location. From my perspective as someone imagining the story unfolding, this is the moment when the narrative becomes almost unbearable for Britt. She cannot run. She cannot warn Jason. She cannot rescue Rocco without risking his life. Cullum has created a perfect cage. And the cruel irony is that Jason believes Britt simply changed her mind. Meanwhile, the attack on Jason begins. Cars follow him on a remote highway, weapons prepared, timing calculated carefully. Whether Jason survives, that ambush could become another dramatic chapter later. Personally, I think the story becomes much more powerful if he does survive somehow. Maybe injured, maybe suspicious. Maybe slowly uncovering the truth, piece by piece. Because eventually secrets like this tend to explode. And when they do, the confrontation between Jason and Cullum would probably be devastating. But at this specific moment in the storyline, Cullum believes he has already won. Jason is alone on the road heading toward danger. Rocco is hidden and powerless. Britt is emotionally blackmailed into obedience. From a storytelling perspective, I actually like this setup a lot because it traps every character in a different way. Nobody is free. Everyone is reacting instead of acting. And that kind of tension usually leads to very unpredictable consequences later. Maybe Britt starts secretly searching for Rocco. Maybe Jason realizes the attack was not random. Maybe one of Cullum's own men begins to question the orders. Hard to know exactly where it would go. But one thing feels certain. Cullum's plan might look perfect right now. Plans like that almost never stay perfect for long.